Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. 5 rounds. This is important, this fight. This is important. One fighter on the up and one fighter maybe on the down. We do not know yet what state Beneil Dariush is in after his fight with Charles Oliveira earlier this year, but we know he's facing Arman Tsarukyan, an oncoming force. The only name out of that sort of like 5 or so that everyone talked about that has actually kind of stuck with it and maintained that run. Remember Guram Kutsaladze? Do you remember him? Do you remember Damir Ismagulov? Remember that lad? Well, they're no longer here, but Arman Tsarukyan is still here, charging up the lightweight division.
I mean, Gamrot's still there, Joe, too.
I know you love Gamrot, but enough about Gamrot. Like, Gamrot sucks.
Well, we're going to be talking about him some more in this fight, Joe. There's a story to be told from his matchup with both of these fighters. So, yeah, you're not getting away from Mateusz that easily.
All right, fair enough.
He follows you everywhere.
He really does. Always going for a single leg. It's really annoying. Listen, let's get into this main event. How do you feel like my framework is off there? That this is not a guy on the up and a guy maybe coming on the down?
No, I don't agree. No. I'm not having that. You're talking about Dariush being on the come down off the back of losing to the former champion Charles Oliveira.
Yes.
What, one loss in what is it, 8?
Yeah, but one hell of a loss. First round knockout loss, where we saw his chin deteriorate in a way that we hadn't seen before. He looked kind of slow a little bit as well. I thought he looked a bit flat-footed at points.
Joe, he was winning the round until he got finished.
But he got finished.
He did, Joe. But let me tell you who else was finished. Dariush. Drakkar Klose. But Dariush came back and he won that fight. Now, I'm not saying it was an early stoppage, but Dariush, he's a little bit wobbly. That's part of this kind of chug-in style. That's how he fights. You can't be wobbly when you're on the mat, when you're on the floor.
Yeah, okay.
That's what did for him. I don't know. Was it such a bad showing? Let me just take us back to the moment there. Dariush versus Oliveira. I think one of us might have picked Dariush to win that fight.
I don't think so.
Well, the long-awaited library of our picks will be live, coming to an internet site near you someday, Joe. Someday, but we don't have it now. I mean, what I'm saying is that Dariush was a legitimate contender there.
Absolutely.
And we were ready for him to fight for the belt. We were fielding questions like, can he beat Islam Makhachev?
Yeah. I mean, obviously not now. He can't beat Makhachev. I think at the time, this was the thing. I was against the Oliveira fight. I felt like Dariush should have been next man up anyway, particularly after Makhachev had faced Volkanovski and beaten Volkanovski. I felt like that was the natural, fair progression from there. And it should have been Dariush, and I don't think that there's much complaint about that, really, considering now that we've had the Oliveira-Makhachev rematch fall apart. We then had him face Volkanovski on just over 10 days' notice and knock out Volkanovski, and now we're waiting to see when he's going to fight Charles again. We're kind of in this kind of stuttery logjam, and I thought we were going to have with Makhachev. We were going to have a guy who's just facing guys and contenders, because that's what he kind of was hinting at. Didn't want to have a lot of rematches. Wanted to just, who's the next guy up and who am I going to beat?
You were one of the proponents for a rematch with Charles Oliveira. I was a bit more on the fence about that and actually preferred Volkanovski coming in that fight in the end. Let me just cut through this confusion. If Dariush goes out there and puts the work on Arman Tsarukyan, shouldn't he be fighting for a belt next? Come on, let's be real. The scale of challenge that he's fighting on Saturday.
So you're saying the scale, if he beats Tsarukyan, that's a bigger scale than Charles Oliveira, a man he lost to?
Yes, given that Oliveira's already lost to Makhachev. Yeah,
but Oliveira beat Dariush, so...
No, Oliveira lost to Makhachev, comprehensively beaten within 2 rounds.
Yes.
Left no questions at all. So that had kind of been settled, Oliveira's got work to do to get back to that point for a matchup with Makhachev.
Yeah.
But Dariush, his quest, his challenge to Makhachev has not been answered. We don't know where he sits there. But you do know how good Tsarukyan was in his debut against Islam Makhachev. We know that a man who can beat Tsarukyan could have something for the champ right now. So I'm saying, if Dariush goes out there and puts it on him, I think he leapfrogs Charles Oliveira. Let me sell that fight to you right now, Joe. Saturday night. We gonna find out. Max Holloway style.
Okay, then. So then, by that rationale, then would you say that Tsarukyan beating Dariush then should set him up for a title shot?
No. No, I would not say that.
This is peak MMA maths right now.
It is. And let me do the maths for you. Dariush is coming off a loss to Oliveira. You know? His stock is a bit diminished by that. You know, I do get that angle that you've been kind of promoting there. It's more a recognition of how good Tsarukyan is. That's what I'm trying to say, Joe. You know how good he is.
He's great. He's great. I mean, I love Tsarukyan. I think he's a tremendous fighter. I think, you know, we can go into his offensive skills in a moment, but it's his defensive skills that really impressed me. Like, his takedown defense is, I mean, lights out brilliant. His balance is incredible. His balance on one leg is just... who is as good as that in the lightweight division as Arman Tsarukyan? Like, Tsarukyan is just... That's debatable, though. We both had Tsarukyan winning that fight, though, didn't we? Like, I know that maybe you want to revise history a little bit there, but I'm not having that, Tom. Like, you know, I think the consensus was fair that Tsarukyan won that fight. I'm not angry that Gamrot won.
Very close.
Very close. Very close. But I'm not angry that Gamrot won. I just don't think, you know, I just don't think he did. Like, that's the long and short of it. So, what am I trying to say here? Yes, anyway, his lights out sort of defensive grappling. I wonder actually how much of that is going to be on display here. Like, do you think Dariush is going to get into like an ego battle, I can take you down wrestling match with this guy? Or do you think he's just going to want to keep it standing and Tsarukyan's the one that needs to take it down?
Yeah, I think Tsarukyan will go into this fight trying to lead the dance. And I think Dariush will be very comfortable to fighting in the same way he did against Gamrot, i.e. that he's looking there to nullify the opponent's game, which he did with Gamrot. Basically, he could sprawl with him. You know, he could nullify his wrestling offense and reduce it to a straight up kind of stand up fight. And that's where Dariush, you know, uncomfortable it can be to look at sometimes, but he can hurt you, Joe. He's got those big clubbing hands. He's prepared to eat a shot, to land his own. And I think that he will fit the mold of Tsarukyan in that way. And with that win over Gamrot behind him, which was a great showing, we can talk about that for a while, but, you know, we were very excited about Dariush coming off of that fight. Where he just nullified that wrestling offense of Mateusz Gamrot, a man who rolled with Tsarukyan for 5 rounds.
Yeah, he had the cardio to go for that level of wrestling for 25 minutes, and then really Dariush kind of sapped him of any will and energy by the 3rd round. I mean, it was...
Well, because his constant offense was just nullified, beaten down again and again. Dariush was just too strong for him, too smart.
He outmuscled him. In that fight. Like, he couldn't get to many takedowns. I think he took Dariush down once, but my main image of that fight is whenever Gamrot was in on a single, it was Dariush just pummeling underhooks every single time, breaking his hands, so that, you know, Gamrot never really got his hands together for takedowns. He never couldn't really chain anything together. Gamrot, when he's wrestling and he takes you down, it's not necessarily the first shot that gets you. It's the chain. Yeah. It's the you're in the washing machine sort of cycle, you know, speeding up. Can you hang on? And Dariush didn't even let him get past the first level, whereas Tsarukyan went with him with each grappling exchange, which may actually ended up being the reason why he lost that fight. Because
he got lost in that element of the fight, you know.
Yeah. First 2 rounds, that was something that he got tangled up in quite a bit. I may have lost scoring opportunities there. I mean, I gave him those early rounds, and it was more later on that I gave Gamrot the later rounds, if I remember correctly. But still, regardless, it did feel like Tsarukyan was occupied by that mentally and tactically. going into the later half of that fight.
So let's explore it then here, Joe, in this fight. Let's say that it takes the terms that I'm describing to you in, that Tsarukyan presses forward into Dariush. What does that look like? Does that mean Tsarukyan is able to kind of work into grappling positions, threaten takedowns, and has that bit more power where Gamrot doesn't? Or do we see a fight where Tsarukyan's ready to meet Dariush on the feet and they kind of trade? What happens there?
Well, this is the interesting point here, because Tsarukyan, for the most part, fights orthodox. He's an orthodox fighter. And whenever he comes up against a southpaw, you've got that open side kick. And that open side kick, he does the opposite of what most fighters do, Tom, which we can agree on, which is break down the body and then they go up high afterwards. So they get you down pushing to like block the body kick, and then they'll come up top with the head kick. It's the classic move. Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Ai, that's the knockout you think of for that. Tsarukyan, on the other hand, he goes the other way. He just throws head kicks straight off the bat, because the chances of his leg being caught from there is quite slim. And then once he's got your hands going up, he then goes to the body from there, because then it reduces the chances of you catching his kicks and then getting into wrestling exchanges, because he wants to instigate the wrestling exchanges. He doesn't want you to be in control of it, of getting that first step onto him. Tsarukyan, when you do get that takedown onto him, it is, I'll go back to the fence, I'm going to restart from there, and then I'll go for a trip from there, so that then I start the next chain. He always wants to be at the start of chains. Like, he wants to chain the takedowns together as well, like Gamrot. So that's why he tends to avoid the body kick early. He'll go with the high kick. And then if he's fighting an orthodox fighter, he'll just sort of like flick up the lead leg, the left leg, sort of high kick as well. Again, straight to the head. Goes to the head first, then to the body afterwards. Again, it's sort of a move that's kind of a bit more bamboozling, because as you probably agree, like, it is the other way around for most fighters. They sort of they want to sap your energy first. Yeah. Whereas Tsarukyan is of the mindset of like, if I get you going like that, I can get cleaner shots to the body and I can actually sap more of your energy from there. If he misses those kicks as well, this is quite a common one. He dropped Gamrot with this, is the spinning back fist. He'll throw a spinning back fist.
Steps through into the spinning back fist after the kick. Yeah.
Exactly. So he tends to like flow from movement to movement into attacking positions in wrestling and in striking. Whereas Dariush is more single shot, and then he'll throw something behind it. So he'll throw, for example, a rear leg body kick, step through from southpaw to orthodox, and then a right hand will come behind it. That will be a Dariush combination as he starts to get moving through the fight. So it'll be more picking single shots, and then over time accumulate extra shots behind it.
Great breakdown there, Joe. Yeah, that's does present some interesting potential matchups, but then I'm also thinking, like, let's say that they end up after one of these exchanges in a grappling situation. I think something we should highlight here about Dariush is his top game. Once he's in that position, he's a heavy wearing pressure with some nice ground and pound. And I think actually when I look across the division, I don't see Tsarukyan, outside of Makhachev, of course, having fought someone with that level of control in their top game against him. I think so. I think there's a possibility here that Tsarukyan could get caught on the bottom and not be able to find his way out, until departing the round. In that position, perhaps he can take damage. His gas tank, can be worn down a bit. What I'm trying to get here, leading on from what you were saying about the striking matchups, is I don't think Tsarukyan has the freedom to throw with that reckless abandon where you're throwing the head kick and coming into a spinning back fist, knowing that you're going to be able to sprawl with the guy and you're going to out-wrestle them and get back to your feet or get into a dominant position on the mat. I think Dariush can take good positions from there that Tsarukyan might not be able to reverse.
The best counter that Dariush has to that actually is the fact he's very heavy on his front leg. Like he's very heavy on that front leg, and he sort of like leans almost over it a little bit, so that when you do throw a kick, that even if it's a head kick, he might be past the point of the head kick, if that makes sense. So like what you want is for the head kick is you want it to be the shin, don't you? And you want the foot to sort of wrap around there. The way Dariush stands, and he's leaning forward always, and he's always on that front leg. So that if you do go for a takedown, he's already sort of ahead of you. But also, if you throw a head kick as well, he'll be ahead of you as well. So really, what Tsarukyan would have to do for that, if he is going to throw the head kick, is actually to take a step backwards before he can then throw it. He can't step forward into the head kick.
I mean, of course, when you mention that stance, you start to think about, okay, the low kick, the low kick, and then, what about uppercuts coming through the middle? What about Muay Thai clinches? What other weapons could be out there? It's an intriguing matchup. Now, I know, Joe, that you're picking Arman Tsarukyan. I know that. All right? Now, come out and tell us the truth. Why can't you see Dariush winning this fight?
There's a problem that I have with Dariush that I have in that last fight, and actually in a couple of his fights, is that, alright, mostly in the last one, I did think he was a bit slow and plodding. And I thought that there was an issue there of like, has he literally just aged out in like the last 6 months from that Gamrot fight to this Oliveira one? And that was an issue for me. And also
couldn't it be the nerves, Joe? Just to jump in on you there, couldn't it be like, I noticed it as well.
I think I noticed. Go on.
Well, he seemed a little bit plodding, like you say, slow. He's breathing heavy, even in the first round. There is an element of that which is his style.
Yeah,
he does chug along. That is his way. But yeah, I think it's too soon to have a drop off like that. This is the biggest night of his career, against Charles Oliveira, and finally people are backing Dariush, saying he could actually do it. He's not just the underdog. Could it be the nerves got to him? Or is it, that decline that you're describing?
Maybe. He may have been injured going into the fight as well. That might have hindered his mobility. I mean, the nerves thing, the thing that slightly pushes me against that is that he seems like such a simpleton that I don't think he has the idea of what nerves are. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. Remember that video from The Embedded when he had his heavily pregnant wife and he was just like sat in a chair and she was like stood next to him and he was just watching fights? He was watching a main event or something. Do you remember that video?
I've seen a few clips of him, which, he's endearing, Joe. Endearing.
He's endearing. I mean, I watched an interview with him and Luke Thomas where like he was breaking down Oliveira Makhachev 2 and the build up to that. And like his fight IQ is brilliant. Like he's got really good insight into the game. There's some guys where like to hear them talk about the fight game is like paint drying, but Dariush is a good one. Adrian Yanez is another good one to listen to as well. But he has got that insight. I don't know, man. Like the nerves thing, the injury thing, it's always hard to
It's
pass.
very hard to know. Yeah.
So I don't really
but
know.
we do know, Joe, we have off nights, Sometimes you're just not feeling it. And this is what often separates, simple laymen from the stars, from the people who really go on to make it, is that kind of consistency and ability to get through that. But, sometimes you're just not feeling it. Like I've been in our predictions game the last few times. So something's been off.
That's 5 or 6 here, Tom, now. You are... It's a desert out there for you.